So, ladies and gentlemen, I'll start my presentation, which is not my presentation. I'm here under false pretenses. I am stepping in here for a gentleman called Ahmed El-Rida, who has sent a paper to the conference, but he couldn't be here himself, because Ahmed is an architect, and he's from Libya, from Benghazi, and they have some problems in Benghazi at the moment. So to get here, he would first have to get out of Benghazi, and there's no airport there anymore functioning. He would have to drive out into the desert to a distant airstrip, fly to Tunisia, get a visa to come to Europe, and then come to Canada, and it was just not possible. But Ahmed has sent us this presentation just to give you some insight. We've just had the glacier, now we're having the desert. Into some insight into what he does in his profession as architect in Libya. I hope we can see the pictures, because this is the important part of the presentation. So if you can put the slides on now. Yeah? Oh, I've got it now. It's running. Ah, that's my slide, is it? Yeah, okay. Ah, that was the wrong one. Okay. So what he's been doing, Ahmed, I first met Ahmed in 2010 when Inat was invited to Libya, and we arrived safely in Benghazi. We had a workshop there with Gates, and who were also at this conference. And Ahmed is disabled himself. He's in a wheelchair, but he's had the fortune to take some of his education, his training in architecture in Vienna, and he's there learned about universal design. So it's safe to say he's the only architect in Libya who has any insight into universal design. And he came back to Benghazi and started a company. It's a consulting and engineering company. And after Gaddafi had been financing and organizing a lot of buildings, also in Benghazi, but across Libya, it was up to Ahmed to come in and help to complete the construction of many buildings. And he's sent a couple of examples here. And this was was the starting point of a children's theatre in Benghazi. It was half finished. And he took on the project where you can see there hadn't been much thought about general access in terms of the levels, vertical circulation, the size of corridors, and that sort of thing. So we jump quickly ahead to how the project was improved through the work that he did with his team. They have a design team there in it's just by the port in Benghazi. He's still going to work there, and the office is still functioning, but they're under considerable difficulties now. But this is how far they'd got, and I saw this myself in 2010. The building had to be retrofitted and actually adapted. You couldn't do much with those huge concrete slabs, but had to be adapted to make it as accessible as possible. There's Ahmed on the right, and he is just entering the building there. So this is not only a theatre, a children's theatre, but also a park-like surroundings, and the park was also made accessible. You will see things in this little corner of Benghazi that I'm sure you won't find anywhere else in Libya. He had an Austrian colleague, a colleague from Austria, I should say, who was working in Libya at the time and helped him to find things like platform lifts, lighting, and so on. So this is a project which is part Austrian, part homemade in Libya. The point about Ahmed's presentation here is that he wants to tell us that this is about this gap. He's called the presentation Bridging the Gap between the architects and the people. He thinks that the community of architects in general is not in contact with the area of accessibility and universal design. And in fact, he's the only person who presented an abstract for this conference who addressed this quite squarely and said, really, we should be talking about education and education of those who have anything to do with design. We haven't probably got many architects who are in design, who are actually in the educational field here, who are teaching architecture. But this was a reminder to us that somebody working under such difficulties can still point to the fact that it's in education that we need to start if we're going to get people to understand how to introduce universal design on a broader basis. Another project that he shows us here is the football stadium in Benghazi, which was half finished again, and he has taken over the role of finishing this project, so managing the project of completing the project, but also providing it a fully accessible stadium. Because that wasn't in the original brief, and the design actually was done in Germany and was sent to Libya. Here is your stadium, build it. And he was the one who said, yes, but we have to make it accessible. So the slide just shows some of the few but important changes that they made to the construction drawings and how they have made the football stadium accessible, even in the VIP areas as well. The point is, he says, it's that architecture for all is about good design that responds to people's needs. It's about creating spaces which are environmentally, socially, and economically sustainable. He mentions the statistics we've heard about the growing elderly population in Europe, which may not be quite the same in Libya, but he's taking this up as a cause because he realizes that this will foster the participation and independence of everyone. He says in order to create a good understanding, developments and actions in the area of promoting accessibility and universal design, we have to rethink our working methods and strategies. We should focus more on engaging a wider range of architects and building designers by using the known methods, awareness raising and training and education, and perhaps some other new methods, which he doesn't indicate what they may be, but he thinks there may be another way to bridge the gap. And principally, he says, we have to look again at the different processes of the architect's work, starting from the layout design, the detail design and interior design, using light and colors and finishes, and the building use systems in the building, like audible systems, elevators or mechanical devices, and even choosing the proper furniture. All of these, he says, are touching the different aspects of the universal design and accessibility. He found his personal experience was that when architects are convinced enough, then they will act as required. And this is a key factor. I think I've mentioned it once before in another presentation, that until people understand why they're required to do things, and until they understand why they're expected to follow certain requirements and design requirements, they have difficulty remembering it and have difficulty putting it in practice. But when they are confronted or they experience the situation from the viewpoint of a user, a visitor, and see, yes, we need to make something like that because it will enable people to use it more easily. This direct contact with getting the experience themselves is the best way of getting them to understand and remember that this is always important. He mentions some of these, the principles of universal design, and he hasn't sent a full catalogue because I think he knows that we know that these are important things. But he's passing this message as the only consultant in Libya who has this information, and for that reason he's very much, or he was very much sought after when they were designing hospitals, airports, schools, and so on. And maybe when things get safer and better again, he'll have more work. And particularly, we've had a project with him to inform and begin some awareness raising and training with the Ministry of Tourism and Development, but all that was done through webinars. They've got a great internet there, but we don't go there. So he says, access consultancy must include everything, starting from preliminary design, planning stage, right through in every aspect. That's his message, and I'm very pleased that he gave me the opportunity to deliver it for him. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ambrose.